Sacred space. What do we mean when we say sacred? You know, what does it mean? I'm asking.
Holy, religious,
Yeah,
something that's special, that's safe.
that's better. Yeah.
It's really sort of not part of the physical world or whatever. It's connected more to the spiritual.
Yeah, yeah. We've become accustomed to it being a sort of religious term. You know, but really it is just something apart from the everyday world, I think. Yeah, something that feels special.
And holy meaning whole more than holy.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah. So part of it is the sense of spirit of place. When you go to an area and a place and it just feels special, maybe there's a special atmosphere. Maybe it's a geographical feature. Often when you see something unusual, like an unusual rock feature or a special tree, you know, you instantly get a feeling of sacredness about it. So we can look at natural locations that have a sense of something different, something special. Unusual landscape features. This is the Azure window, which is on Gozo in Malta. Any Game of Thrones fans here?
Oh,
Yeah, this is where the Dothraki start off. Where you first see Daenerys. They're just beside this, and this is in the background. So, good location. There'll be places that are venerated by humans. This is a picture taken by Susan Collins. And this was an old, it was a portage route, wasn't it?
a portage route for the native Canadians,
The native
and
Canadians.
this was a resting spot for them and a burial sites too.
And Genius Loci, the spirit of place. This is on the Michael line. If you were at my talk the other day, you'll know about the Michael current. This is God, I forgot the name of it now. It's in West Penwith, which is way down in Cornwall. And I love this. Just this, like this serpent coiled on the rock here, or maybe a turtle. You know? Yeah. And just down here, underneath the head, this is pointing towards just down here. There's a lovely little holy well, which is very secret. Nobody knows about it.
There's a
Trencron Hill, that's what it's called.
There's a feature like that near Sedona.
Yeah.
Arizona.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So any of these places draw humans to them. You know, we do venerate these. We see the spirit in the landscape. Yeah, very easily. Maybe places with a special atmosphere. This is a really interesting place that's deep in the heart of Scotland. It's a really, really inaccessible place to get to. You have to walk from where you leave the car. It's like 2.5 hours walk to get here.
That's a commitment.
That's it. Yeah. So it's up in Upper Glen Lyon, which is right in the heart of Scotland, in the geomantic centre. This is called Tinam Boda, or Tinam Kayak, which means house of the Boda, or house of the kayak. And the kayak is the old crone goddess of Scotland. She's the crone that rules the winter months. When she drapes her shawl over the mountains in the winter, that's the snow. So the story goes with this is that many, many years ago, it was a couple who came to the valley looking for shelter. And the locals allowed them to stay in the valley in this little shieling, as it's called, as long as they would look after the cattle and the sheep. So that was like hundreds of years ago. And this is the kayak here, the stone. These are river-worn stones that have been tumbled in the water of the river until they become these sort of rounded shapes. And this with this sort of flat cap here is the Bodach, her husband. And these are some of their children. And about every 100 years or so, another one comes out of the river, another child is born. So every year, on the 1st of May at Beltane, somebody, used to be the shepherd or somebody, goes up and takes them out of the house for the summer. And then at sowing on the 1st of October, they get put, 31st of October, sorry, they get put back in again, and the house is made secure for the winter. And this has been going on for at least 1,500 years, as far as we know, way back to the Iron Age. This has been going on. So it's the best example of a surviving pagan ritual from near the prehistoric times. Very powerful spot, tremendous atmosphere there. Lots of people who have gone there and not treated it with respect have had weird things happen to them. The first time I visited, I was with a rather sensitive colleague of mine, and as we were walking up the valley to get here, there was little streams, creeks I guess you call them, running down the side of the road, and they have a particular plant there that's very red, and the dye from the plant was in the water, so it was like rivers of blood almost. You know. And we got there, and inside the hut was a lamb, a dead lamb, that was laid out. So I don't know if this was just a lamb that had died and had been put in as an offering, or whether it just crawled in there to die, or whether it was a deliberate sacrifice. I suspect it was just a lamb that had died of natural causes, and the shepherd had put it in there as an offering. So, but it was, quite a foreboding atmosphere. We didn't stay too long. But then a couple of years later, I went back to see it again, and it felt much lighter when we were walking up the valley. And as we got to it, a live lamb stuck its head out. Yeah. So as long as you treat the kayak with respect, she'll be good to you. She'll be fine. There's so many stories in Scotland about the kayak. They call her the Carlin in East Scotland and South East Scotland, but in the West Highlands she's called the kayak. So, there's also off the coast between the islands of Scarba and Jura, there is a whirlpool called Corrivrechin, which is where the kayak goes to wash her shawl. And there's so many stories that are way back in the mist of time about this. It's obviously a very sacred space. And it's a really tight passage that's very deep between the two islands. And there's a spike of rock in the middle, which is actually called the kayak. And the water whirls around this when the tides are right, creating this whirlpool. Here's another example. George and the dragon, or Michael perhaps and the dragon. I think they both have dragon slaying attributes. So dragons, of course, are a metaphor for earth energy lines, and these dragon lines, serpent lines. So where you get a crossing of these, you will find some sort of something like this, a statue or a stone or a shrine. So there are a lot of churches dedicated to Michael and George where you have these crossings of the lines. The other type of sacred space we can consider is that of intentional space. And by that I mean spaces that are constructed for a specific purpose with our intention, which is what we're going to be doing today, really. So these can be spaces for individual use or for group ceremony. So they can be done with just individual intent or consensual intent from all those taking part. Classically in the traditional ceremony of magic, you have the magic circle. They're usually designed for a specific purpose. You would design a site for a specific ceremony or ritual. This is a famous spooky medieval painting. This is supposed to be Edward Kelly, who was the scribe to Dr. John Dee, who was Elizabeth I's astrologer and spy master. And if you heard about these two guys, Kelly and Dee, worked for many years communicating with angels, and they channeled this whole angelic language called the Enochian, which has its own syntax and grammar. And there's a whole system of magic in the Western magical tradition called Enochian magic that's based around it. So, but Kelly was a bit of a rogue. He had one of his ears cut off for thieving before he met Dee. So this is supposed to be Kelly with some unnamed accomplice doing some necromancy, raising a spirit to the graveyard. And you see they're in the magic circle of intentional space as they raise the spirit. So the form of the space that we are creating can be used to support the working. So here's a nice example here of a little public stone circle, I guess, or medicine wheel, maybe we call it. Where we have the four quarters marked out, and a little altar in the table in the centre. And we seem to have the cross quarters here as well. So the space is not dependent on the location that it's in, although it can be enhanced by it. Going back to talking about these layers, the more of these things you can plug in, the better the space becomes. So although you could build a circle like this anywhere you like, if we have it on a specific concentration of the earth energies, it's going to be stronger. It's going to enhance the energy of the space. And it can be temporary, such as a rock labyrinth like this, or the Cretan labyrinth that Alex built up there, or permanent. Here's a good definition for you. Intentional space, or what could be called very awkwardly, eco-psycho-socio-cultural space, boy that's a mouthful, is a multi-dimensional space within which we are simultaneously located physically, psychologically, and socio-culturally as a socio-cultural agent, as an actor with purpose. Yeah, ponder that one.
Wow.
Well, that's good.
So-
It's a good.
So ideally, for the best possible combination of sacred space techniques, we want to have spirit of place, a site where there is a natural spirit of place, combined with our intention. That gives us sacred space. So that's what we're aiming for today in this workshop.